Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine.
Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis.
Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. I'm delighted to be joined by Sheree Brown. She's a singer, an ASCAP winning songwriter, and an Emmy nominated producer. She's here to talk about her book, Messages in the Spirit, which is a story about women overcoming all kinds of various challenges, including things in health and mental health. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
So I want to roll things back a little bit in time and talk about sort of that young singer that signed to Capitol and was starting to explore music and what that experience was like. A dream come true for so many people.
It was, let me see, I just celebrated my 40th year right before the pandemic hit. From the date my first album was released on Capitol Records. It was just tremendous. And it was so much fun because all the folks that I hung out with, I was friends with, and they were all in the studio working on my album. Patrice Rushen, the late Ricky Lawson, Paulinho DaCosta, Stevie came in with the harmonica, the late Sarita Wright, Jim Gilstrap, the Waters sang some background. And it just seemed like a natural. We hung out together before I even went into the recording studio, so I always knew that that was my dream.
Sure.
People told me I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, they would say, "Oh, wow. Do you know how hard it is?" I said, "Oh, no, I'm gonna do it." Sure. You know, because of persistence and my faith, and here I am.
Tell us about your songs and how you found your voice and some of that skill that came with writing. Did you feel like, oh, that just came naturally, or I'd been writing poems? How did you make that transition into actually being able to put together an album?
It came pretty natural to me. I love to write poems from elementary school, right? And then I taught myself how to play the guitar when I was in the 5th grade, so I must have been about 10, right?
Wow.
And so I got a chord book, I started learning the chords, and I learned on a steel string guitar. And anybody out there who has played a steel string, it's much harder than playing a nylon on your fingers, right? And so you have to push it and push it and push it, and I was so determined to play this guitar. I would go to bed at night and my hand, I'd have to sleep like this because my fingertips would be throbbing. Sure. And I'd get up the next morning in spite of the pain. And so here's one of the things that happened is that as I was learning the chords, sometimes I would experiment. I'd say, I wonder how it would sound if I left an open string here. And so I started playing different kinds of chords. And people, some jazz musicians would sit and they would study my hands to see what it was that I was playing. Right. But that was a part of the natural talent. Sure. You know, so it came naturally. And what I did is wrote about what I felt, but I always loved to write about love and positive things.
Yes, you exude positivity. Tell us about sort of how that opportunity to actually record on Capitol Records, which then and still even to this day is really a major label. How did that come about?
I had been working on music demos for 7 years. Okay. And the last demo that I worked on is the one that they heard. And the interesting thing is, when they first received that demo, I got one of those reject letters.
Standard.
Right. But a whole year, it was a different circumstance, different people. That same demo got me my record deal. And on that demo were the James Brown horn section. Some of the horn players from Earth, Wind & Fire. Patrice Rushen was on it. I mean, it was just, when I think of the blessing of it, Abraham Laboriel on bass, you know? And they heard that demo. And that's what they said. Oh, I remember going to the executive's office, and I brought my guitar. I took my guitar everywhere. When I was in elementary school, I used to take junior high, I used to take my guitar to school on the bus. And I would sit back, and I would pass 2 different high schools before I would get to mine, right? So they were so used to me playing, and I would always be sharing a song I had written, right?
Wow.
And I wouldn't be doing my homework at night, because I'd be writing the song. I'd get up early in the morning and do my homework. So I'd take my guitar and I'd be on the bus. And so, you know, on the bus, at least back then, right, they had a seat that was right in the back.
Yes.
And then the side seats, right? Yes. They would save that seat for me. Every morning I would get on that seat, take out my guitar, and say, you guys want to hear what I wrote last night?
Sure.
And they were into it. And so it just grew. It just became, it was a natural part of me just coming out more for people to experience. So by the time I got my record deal at Capitol, I had written all the songs for 2 albums.
Wow.
And those songs were on both of my albums. All of the songs were original songs. I wrote everything except on my first album, I co-wrote one of the songs with Sheree Wright, the late Sheree Wright.
Absolutely. How do you feel that you find your voice and make a sound that's uniquely your own? It seems like something that so many artists struggle with.
I never considered myself to be one of those powerful voices vocally. So I became more of a stylist, and I decided I wasn't going to compete with that because that's not who I was. And I couldn't even be it if I tried because vocally I wasn't there. So, but vocally, there was a certain timbre in my voice and a certain naturalness that just came with the feeling that I had when I was playing my music and my guitar. And that's what my audience, even to this day, that's what they experience. And so that's how it helped me it helped to set me apart from others. And then I was writing, you know, I've written a number of songs with Patrice Rushen, you know, Sarita. And so I was not only writing for myself, I was co-writing and working on other projects too.
Sure. Do you think that's a secret to your longevity, being able to write for others, write for yourself, and continue to essentially be a creator as opposed to only being dependent on what the label might be able to bring you?
I think so. I think so. It's some of the songs, here's an example. Some of the songs I co-wrote with Patrice, to this day, I'm still collecting royalties from them. And so I tell young people when they're coming up, get that published, as much of your publishing as you can get, and write something on your project so that you can get credits for being an author of that song, composer. Because that's something that is endless if it's getting airplay. And now it's streaming, right? And so that's something legally no one can take away from you, right? So it's like, oh, I'm out, you know, and people are excited. That's beautiful, but learn to write, you know, work on it, you know. And
be a true creative in every sense.
Yes.
Our show is called Music and Medicine. When you hear those words, what does it mean to you? How does it speak to your heart?
It speaks loudly. Music to me is medicine. I did a USO tour when I was with Capitol Records. And they asked me, where do you want to go? I said, I want to go where no one wants to go. So they would send me to these little missile camps or sites where maybe there were 7 servicemen on it. And so I went to Egypt, Israel, Italy, Germany. And when I went to Italy, I performed for the Italian military on their base. They didn't even speak English. But there was a connection with the music. Music is universal, and it just can touch. That's why I'm really excited about this book, this new book of mine, because not only are there stories, but there's songs dedicated to the women in their stories. And some of the women who are telling their stories are actually singing and co-writing some of the songs, which takes it another whole thing. It was inspired by my young adult years, because my young adult years, a lot of that foundation of what I do now was set up then. Those seeds were planted before then, but a lot of them, you know, there was a major influence for me and the people who were part of my circle musically.
Sure. I wanted to talk to you about that. The subtitle is about women who are overcoming. Talk to us about some of the types of challenges that you cover in the book, that some of the women who share their stories and that you have.
mental illness,
Yes.
and we like to say mental wellness,
Yes.
right? Bipolarism, depression, single mothers, abuse, and loneliness. You know, so the women who told their story are very transparent. I have a niece who told her story, and when we were editing, I was saying, wow, and I didn't know a lot of things. She's my niece. And she gave me enough information for 4 stories. I said, well, you know, we can only do 1. I'm gonna edit it. And then she's a phenomenal singer. The song is called I Wanna Thank You, Love. And that's the title of her chapter. And she's got an awesome voice. She went to Spelman, and she actually is a spokesperson in Atlanta for mental wellness. She got some type of an award or some type of ambassador. They had her on a billboard in Atlanta. So it's the older, the more seasoned, and the younger folks coming up. So the collaboration is awesome. But those stories, some of them, the women were saying they just couldn't wait to share it, as hard as it was for them to write it. Because what would happen is, a lot of there were triggers. So music is healing, but what happens when you might hear something, you might tell your story, that's starting the process of healing, but then there's a trigger. What do? And the resources are not ready available to a lot of us, especially in certain communities, right? Especially our community. So there's actually 2 pages of resources at the end.
Yes, I saw that.
You know, my daughter-in-law is a young adult and a doctor of psychiatry. She does the first chapter. She talks about the women and their stories and how courageous they are. And I even tell a story. One of the chapters is about something that happened with me as a young adult. But the music, I love the music, I love it.
Sure. How'd the idea come to you? Because it's so important. We're always saying that we want to do more about mental health and support people more, but oh, here's a phone number to call. And so it kind of really seems like a mixed message, or go see a therapist. And for some people, financially, that might be a barrier. How did this idea to have something that not only was cathartic, but also healing with the music and the resources, sort of all-in-one, come to you?
I was thinking of how the whole package could be used as a tool.
Right.
So I did a project called Messages from the Heart, which was the first book. It's the same format.
Right.
And it's stories of women of all ages. And one of the things I wish I had ready available were the resources. So this is the follow-up from that book. And so I knew that in this book, there had to be, especially since we were using it as a tool, there had to be resources. And so how it came about, I was doing a mentorship program, because that's what I'm about. I feel like we're all mentors and mentees, right?
Yes.
We never know,
Right,
you,
touch.
okay,
Right, exactly, right.
And so,
Sure.
I was doing this a 6-month program.
Sure.
And I would, and it was handpicked, because they would come to my home, and they'd come once a week for 6 months, and I would teach them A to Z about this music business and how to write songs. And it was a work in progress and hands-on. So they were actually creating the song. And you know, I tell them how to copyright your song, how to register with ASCAP or
Sure.
BMI. Well, it started like this. One of my clients, it was, I think she might have been 18 or 19 at the time. And as we would progress and we would talk, it was like, well, you know, write something about how you're feeling. Write something about what you're going through, and what had happened is, as we spent time together on the music side, she started to just share things that were deep about things that she had gone through. Oh my gosh. And I was like, well, and I would never judge.
Sure.
I would just listen. And so, you know, at the end of the 6 months, the goal was to write a song, and I would take them in the recording studio and produce a recorded song. So she wrote this song, Can I Leave Next Friday, on the ukulele. I was like, wow. Because she was talking about something she was going through.
Yeah.
And this happened when she was like in junior high school, right? Now she's getting ready to go to college. And so I said, well, why don't you write the song about it? So what that was about is that she attempted suicide, not once, not twice, probably more than that. And her parents, and she shares it in her story, her parents, that her parents and music saved her life. And she had to be institutionalized, be put into an institution, and her parents, as hard as it was, needed to do that to save her life, because after the third attempt, they knew they had to do something. And so she just started talking about the things that she went through, the bullying, as a young child. And then she shared how she had a chemical imbalance, and what they went through trying to find the right medication. And so I said, and in fact, her song is the only song that I had nothing to do with writing. I co-arranged it and co-produced it with a partner named Steve Cohen. But that song was so strong. Oh my gosh, and so she's playing the ukulele, and the hook is, can I leave next Friday? Doctor, can I leave next Friday? So she talks about it. So that's what inspired me. Sure. It was like, whoa, okay, this is the follow-up book. I know the first one got a good response. Right. Let's go deeper with this one. So these folks are talking about the triggers, and okay, well, what do you do? And so we took it even further.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, so giving. Do you feel that that is just something that comes from within? You feel that you've been blessed, and so now you really want to help others who not only want to get better at writing songs and being able to understand that process, but also heal?
Yes, yes. I figure, so when I was really younger, right. I had this I was in elementary school. And I said, I want to be a singer so that I can help children and older people. That was my goal. As like I must have been 8 or 9 years old, that's the truth, right? And that never left me. And so my life and what I do has been about that. When I was on Capitol Records, I did a high school tour. Just to go in and say, stay in school, stay off drugs, And so that's just me. The more I can help people, the better I feel. Sure. The more I can share my music. I'm so thankful at this stage I can still do that, And even like for instance, I co-wrote Haven't You Heard with Patrice Rushen, right? So Jeanne used part of it for Groove Thing. Yes. That makes me a songwriter for a new version, a new song, right?
Exactly, right.
Then Kirk Franklin used Haven't You Heard?
Right, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was like an answer to a prayer. Kirk Franklin, yes. And so even when I hear either of them, even Haven't You Heard, I'm driving down the street, I'm like, oh, if somebody's next to me, you hear this song? I have something to do with it, And then, doing my, doing my thing. There's 3 people that inspired me coming up. And this book and the album, because the album, the CD is in the book. Yes. It comes with the book, right? So there were 3 artists that inspired me. The late Minnie Riperton, Dionne Warwick, and Stevie Wonder. So I didn't get a chance to meet Minnie, but her husband, Dick Rudolph, Richard Rudolph, produced my first album. Wow. So I was able to be in their home and meet Maya when she was like 7 years old, and her brother, Mark. And that was a connection that I felt, And Stevie came and played the harmonica on my second album. And that was like, people were saying, they were like, Stevie's so busy. He said he wants to do it. Andre Fisher produced the second one. So I had great producers, right? And then a co-producer, Alexander Thomas, who used to be with Earth, Wind & Fire, a horn player. And so they were like, you have to come up with your second choice. And I'm like, that's where my faith is, and that's where my persistence. Nope.
Right.
And and Stevie had said to get, I had his number, so I'm calling. I said, Stevie, I want you to do this. So this one night we're in the studio, it's late, and one of the assistant engineers comes in and she says, Stevie's out in the parking lot. I'm like, oh my God. So he comes in, he plays the harmonica on one take. He said, how was that? I said, that was awesome. You know, he asked me how it was. Oh my gosh. Then, right, and then he said, okay, I'm gonna do another one for you. So he did it. How was that? So we even had a hard time trying to figure out which one should we use.
Right.
The song's called On My Way Home.
Beautiful.
You know, and then I have a very supportive family. My husband, it'll be 42 years next month. And I knew when I met the right person that I would get my record deal. And that's exactly what happened. I just believe that, you know.
Amazing. Give us a shameless plug for where we can find you and the book and more about you.
Okay, you can go to my website at www.realsheree.brown, spelled R-E-A-L-S-H-E, one R, and then E-E.com, realsheree.brown.com. And you can order the book online, pay for it, and we'll send it out to you. And you can hear a lot of the, hear more about me and what I've done, and the music that I've done, and the things that are coming up.
Sure. So wonderful, so wonderful.
Thank you.
You've heard here from Sheree Brown, who has spent her life giving from her heart music to help others to grow and stay positive. And she just exudes it, doesn't she? It's so important when we go through mental health crises that we do a little bit more than just pay lip service to it. Tell people to call this phone number or maybe go see a therapist. Certainly those things are important and we encourage them. But really going through the process of healing, really having that process of being cathartic and releasing your words and then turning them into a song, as she's been able to do with so many of the writers that are involved in this project, is something that's not only so heartwarming, but really takes it to the next level. And then more importantly, the resources are included there as well. That if you're dealing with mental health issues, whatever they may be, domestic violence or abuse, or situations that even may be from your remote past, like some of the writers of the book, still, it's so important to be able to have that release and have resources available to you that you can go to in your time of need. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I want to just mention that the cover is by Charles Bibbs.
Okay, and tell us.
Charles Bibbs is a world-renowned artist, and his work is all over the world. And he and I we collaborated for a whole year. He getting snippets of my music and me seeing some of his sketches. And that piece is his painting is called Love Is, and it's on the front of the album cover, which was released last year on Expansion Records.
Absolutely. Well, you exude nothing but love, and we have so appreciated you giving us your time, your heart, and your music. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis.